Hey guys, tonight we step into a world of foggy mornings, ancient coin boxes, and lonely bridges guarded not by knights, but by a humble toll collector. Your job? Stand at a creaking checkpoint where a narrow path crosses a rickety wooden bridge, collecting passage fees from everyone from nobles on horseback to barefoot millers pushing carts of turnips. It is early, and you are cold. Your hands, stiff with sleep, fumble with the iron key to your toll chest. You listen, not for conversation, but for the creak of wagon wheels and the distant cough of oxen. A hawk circles overhead. There are no spreadsheets, no traffic lights, no guardrails. Just you, your log of hand-marked tallies, and a loose promise from the local baron that you will not starve. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you are watching from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake to the sound of wet wood snapping, just the usual creak of your booth roof settling. The sun has barely begun its lazy climb, spilling grayish light across the forest path that winds toward your bridge. Mist clings low, making it hard to tell whether someone is coming, or whether it is just another trick of the marshland air. You throw your fur-lined cloak around your shoulders, buckle on your belt pouch, where your smallest coins jangle like sheep bells, and take up your post. Your toll station is, well, modest. A crooked shack just large enough to sit in, its wood swollen from a decade of weather. You share it with two ledgers, a small bell, a horn you are instructed to blow only in emergencies, which you have never done, and an unpleasant family of spiders living under the table. The official sign, hammered above the entrance, reads, "Toll required. No exceptions." Of course, exceptions happen almost daily. Today, your first visitor is a boy walking a goat. He does not speak, just points to the bridge and waits. You nod, gesture to the basket in his hand, and he offers you a hunk of hardened bread that might also qualify as a blunt weapon. You sigh, make a mark on your tally stick, and wave him through. The goat stares at you in judgment. You are used to it. Medieval tolls were often less about consistent pricing and more about strange negotiations. Sure, some places had posted rates. So many pence for a cart, less for a foot traveler. But enforcement? You, like many toll collectors of the age, are half clerk, half local gossip, and half minor deity in charge of the bridge. Yes, that is 3 halves. Math is not your strongest area. The bridge you tend is one of those precarious plank affairs with rope rails that flap in the wind and make every crossing feel like a gamble. Built decades ago by some long-forgotten baron trying to impress the bishop, it has been barely maintained since. You keep a hammer and a few rusty nails in your booth, just in case a plank gives way midday, and it is always damp. The marsh below never fully dries, even in high summer. The smell is a thick, sour thing, mud and old fish, and something worse. But you stopped noticing that years ago. Instead, you focus on the rhythm of the day, footsteps on wood, clinking coins, the occasional grunt from a donkey. Most toll collectors in this era were not glamorous figures. You were not a knight, nor a farmer, nor even a priest. You were more like a doorman for a world of controlled movement. Passage meant payment, simple. But if they could not pay, you had to improvise. Some offered wares, others offered prayers. One man once offered to dance. You did not make him do it, but you thought about it. Sometimes you wonder how you got here. Maybe you were born into it, like your father before you. Or maybe you owed someone a favor, and this was the repayment. No matter, this is your world now. You warm your hands over the tiny brazier by your feet and chew on the last piece of dried apple from yesterday. Your stomach growls in protest. Breakfast will be late. Maybe someone will bring you an egg. Then comes the noise. Wheels, you hear the rattle of wood, the soft slap of hooves, and the low grumble of a driver. A cart approaches, pulled by a sleepy-eyed horse. The man atop it raises a hand in greeting and digs around for payment. You already know what is coming. A single silver penny, freshly rubbed to hide its wear. He smiles. You nod. Transaction complete. Historians still argue whether toll collectors were considered true officials or just tolerated nuisances with keys. What is certain, though, is that the job came with more power than it appeared. You can stop someone. You can delay trade. You can demand documentation, or at least pretend to. By midday, the fog lifts, revealing the sloping fields beyond the tree line. You see a hawk dive. Somewhere nearby, someone is baking bread, and the smell makes your mouth water. A woman selling reeds tries to pass without paying. You raise your eyebrow, and she offers you a tiny woven mat. You accept. One merchant offers you a deal. Let his overloaded donkey cart through, and he will bring back dried figs next week. You accept, knowing full well he will not. You let him through anyway. You are not heartless, just practical. And as the sun reaches its highest point, you glance at your tally stick. 6 carts, 2 horses, 1 goat, 3 foot travelers, and 1 very brave cat. Not bad for a foggy day. Inside your wooden booth, you settle in with the usual creaks and groans of the structure. A smell of damp bark and old straw hangs in the air. The wind whistles through a crack in the rear plank, brushing your ear like a mischievous whisper. You swat at it absently. This booth is both your castle and your cage. 4 walls, a leaky roof, and just enough space to sit on a stool without bruising your knees. It was probably built in haste, like most toll stations in this part of the countryside. A few local trees hacked down, a bit of stone jammed in for the foundation, and voila, you have an official place to carry out your duties. There's a small sliding window, which sticks every time you open it, and a wooden slot for coins that makes a deeply satisfying thunk when they drop in. You treasure that sound. It is your music, your proof that the day is ticking forward. The rules you follow are posted on a scroll nailed to the inner wall, though the ink has long faded and half the Latin is misspelled. Still, you know them by heart. 1 toll for carts, half toll for shepherds, double toll for anyone carrying barrels, because barrels probably mean ale. Monks pay nothing. At least, that is what they tell you. You are not allowed to argue. Pilgrims pay with blessings. Sometimes they even try to bless your goat. You do not have a goat. But the rules? Oh, they are not really consistent. One day, you are expected to charge 2 pence per axle. The next, someone from the manor rides in on a horse, barking about new directives from the reeve, grain wagons exempt, sheep doubled, no geese unless flying. You are handed an ink-stained scroll that contradicts last week's scroll. You nod, pretend to understand, and continue doing exactly what you were doing before. You do not make the rules, you enforce them, selectively. This morning, a farmer came by hauling a load of cabbages. You told him the cabbage rate had doubled due to a leaf tax. He squinted at you, scratched his beard, and paid in silence. Whether or not he believed you does not matter. You believed you. Your job is a bizarre mix of total solitude and occasional flashes of authority. Most of the time, you are just sitting there, staring into the middle distance, flicking pebbles into the marsh, or mending a hole in your cloak. But when someone approaches, it is showtime. You sit up. You lean out of your booth with your best neutral expression. You become the gatekeeper of passage, master of the wooden bridge. There is power in that moment. Just a little, just enough. One curious part of your day. You never really know who will show up. Once, a traveling minstrel stopped to ask directions and offered to pay his toll by playing a tune. You let him. The lute was out of tune, but the story about the tavern brawl he escaped in Ghent was worth the free pass. Another time, a pair of noble ladies passed through, cloaked in velvet and trailing the scent of expensive oil. They tossed you a silver groat like you were a wishing well. You pretended not to care, but you stared at that coin all afternoon like it was a crown jewel. Historians still argue whether medieval toll booths were strategic economic checkpoints or just revenue collection gimmicks for minor lords looking to fund their next boar hunt. In practice, they were both. The toll you collect today might help repair the bridge, or it might line the reeve's pocket, or it might vanish into the coin pouch of the taxman who visits once every 2 months with a scroll longer than your arm and no sense of humor. There is also a rumor, passed around like breadcrumbs among fellow collectors, that somewhere out east a toll keeper was allowed to build a stone booth, heated in winter, with glass in the windows. You try not to dwell on that too much. It feels like a fairy tale. Around midday, a group of merchants stop by. They are boisterous, jostling for space, all sweaty and loud, and arguing over whose turn it is to pay. You listen patiently. They try to confuse you with overlapping stories. This one is empty. That one's only carrying straw. The third insists his ox is technically exempt because it has a limp. You hold up a hand and say calmly, 1 silver each. Discount for volume. They groan, pay, and move on. You count the coins twice. One of them slipped in a pebble instead of a penny. You make a note to remember his face. There is no shortage of tricks, skims, and creative accounting at your post. Children are sometimes sent ahead to distract you while their parents sneak past with a cart. Once, a clever merchant sent a dummy figure on a donkey dressed as a friar. You waved him through and found out later it was just sacks stuffed in a robe. Still, For the most part, people pay. They grumble, they curse under their breath, but they pay because they know there is another toll up ahead and another after that. And you are just part of the rhythm. As the sun begins to dip toward the trees, casting long orange fingers across the wooden planks of the bridge, you stretch your back and listen to the quiet. It is strange how calm it is, despite the odd roll, the scammer here and there, and the biting wind. This job, it suits you. Not many people would enjoy this life. The boredom, the solitude, the occasional angry noble. But for you, the stillness is a kind of comfort. The world comes to your door. You do not chase it. You shift in your seat, reach for your pouch, and take out a plum, half bruised, slightly fermented. You eat it anyway. Tomorrow may bring rain, or wolves, or another scroll with new rules about barrel tolls. But tonight, the booth is quiet, and that will do. Coins, chickens, and cheese. That is the holy trinity of your daily barter economy. You do not live in a world of paper money or bank accounts. You live in a world where payment is tangible, smelly, sometimes alive, and often looking at you with judgmental eyes. If you thought being a toll collector was all about stacking coins in tidy rows and keeping records like some kind of medieval accountant, think again, because in this corner of the world, your ledger is flavored with goat hair and damp bread crusts. It begins, as it often does, with a smell. Late morning, a stout woman arrives leading 2 squawking hens tied with twine. She's headed toward the river town and insists she has no coin today, but she's got eggs. She winks. The chickens squawk. You hold up your palm. She unties one and sets it on your bench like a gift basket from rural purgatory. You nod, wave her through, and try not to get pecked. Now, you have a chicken. You did not want a chicken. Your ledger has a special notch, 3 jagged lines, for live payment. It happens more than you'd like. Chickens, eggs, cheese wheels, seed sacks, salt lumps, even a terrifyingly aggressive goose once. You are a toll collector, but you are also a reluctant zookeeper. To be fair, barter is a centuries-old form of toll payment, especially in rural areas where coinage was rare. While silver pennies were the theoretical standard, many travelers carried goods instead of currency, either because they were poor or because they knew some toll collectors, like you, were more flexible than the law admitted. Historians still argue whether tolls paid in goods were officially sanctioned or just tolerated by lazy sheriffs and distracted barons. You step back into your booth and stare at your new chicken. It stares back. This is going to be a long day. Not long after, a cart rolls up, wobbling under the weight of barrels. The driver hops off and approaches with exaggerated friendliness. No coin, he says, but I have something better. He reaches into one of the barrels, pulls out a cloth-wrapped parcel, and presents it like a sacred relic. Cheese. A big, round, suspiciously soft cheese, already beginning to sweat in the mid-morning sun. You sigh. You take it. You chalk a curvy spiral onto your tally board to represent cheese wheel. You really need to develop a better symbol system. Last week you had to draw a horse with a pig's tail to represent a partial mule. But hey, at least you are fed. One of the perks of this strange little post is that your meals are often diverse. You have had raw honey, turnips still dusted with earth, fish wrapped in reeds, and once, memorably, a pie made of entirely unidentifiable ingredients. You did not ask questions. You ate around the green bits. Barter tolls are not just about survival. They are about negotiation. Every traveler is a haggler, every toll a puzzle. How much is a salted herring worth? Is a cracked jar of pickled beets equal to one broken wagon wheel? These are questions no medieval court has ever resolved. But you make those calls daily. You are judge, jury, and occasional cheese taster. Then there is the matter of counterfeit goods. You remember the time a sly tanner offered you a rare Eastern spice, which turned out to be dyed sawdust wrapped in a ribbon, or the merchant who claimed his goat was blessed by a friar and therefore worth double toll. You let him pass out of sheer admiration for the audacity. You keep a mental list of travelers to watch. One man always underpays by one egg. Another tries to hide sacks of grain under animal skins. You do not always confront them. Sometimes you just remember, you never forget. But then, there are the honest ones, the weavers who bring you a scrap of wool with every crossing. The potter's boy who overpays with extra clay for your booth's leaks. These moments stick with you too. Not every day is a scam. This afternoon, a young couple arrives, pushing a wheelbarrow filled with crates. They are headed to the next market. You ask for toll, and they both look sheepish. She offers you a scarf, hand-woven. Probably took days. It is lovely. You hesitate, but it is more than fair. You accept it, tie it around your neck, and watch as they vanish down the road, laughing. Some toll collectors in larger towns had actual rate tables, real ones, carved in stone or posted in town squares. You operate on vibes, fairness, yes, but also instinct. You can tell when someone is lying. You can tell when they're desperate. Sometimes you let them pass. Sometimes you ask for a song or a story or just a promise to pay later. And somehow, weirdly, they often do. The chicken pecks at your boot. You sigh and nudge it back toward the corner. By now your booth smells like cheese, bird, and sweat. You open the little window and let in some fresh air. In the distance, you spot an ox cart coming. This one's familiar. An old brewer with a booming laugh and terrible breath. He brings ale, not coin. Not cheese, ale, 3 cups' worth, in a quart jug. You do not drink while working, but you accept the jug. You are not a monster. Later, as dusk falls, you check your earnings for the day. 3 silver pennies, 1 cheese wheel, a dozen eggs, a chicken, a scarf, and a jug of ale. You try to stack these in some meaningful way, but give up. The chicken tries to escape again. You bribe it back with a crumb. You chuckle softly. It is a strange life, but it is yours. You wake up to frost on your boots and a pine cone in your ear. You fell asleep in the booth again, head leaning against the wall. legs sprawled across a burlap sack of barley someone traded you last week. Your chicken, now named Adela, roosts smugly on your cloak like she owns the place, which, in fairness, she might. You stretch, wince at the stiffness in your spine, and nudge the little hearthstone in the corner. No firewood left. You will have to get creative. Again, the booth, humble as it may be, is both workplace and living quarters. And while the living part is generous, it is not unheard of. Toll collectors in rural parts of medieval Europe often lived on site, either because travel to a nearby village was impossible or because the job required constant vigilance. Someone had to guard the crossing. Someone had to sleep where the toll was kept. Which brings us to the very glamorous topic of daily life hygiene. There is none. You have a wooden pail with a cracked rim for business, a creek nearby for rinsing your hands, and a bar of lard soap that has more grit than clean in it. Historians still argue whether most toll collectors lived in permanent residences or rotated shifts from nearby hamlets, but in isolated routes like yours, staying put makes sense. Your clothes? One tunic, patched a dozen times. A pair of wool trousers with suspicious stains you stopped questioning. A leather belt holding up everything, including your pouch, your knife, and a flint. You bathe when it rains. You pray it does not snow. And you have a strong, proud relationship with your fleas. They are loyal. They do not judge. Breakfast is cold barley, washed down with lukewarm water from a cracked jug. Adela clucks disapprovingly. She prefers bugs. You let her roam. You sweep the booth. Well, sort of. You push the worst of the dirt to the corners and fluff up the straw bed. It is the best you can do. After all, you are not running a monastery. Then it is time to check your vault. Tucked under a loose floorboard is your treasure hoard, a cloth pouch of coins, some notes scribbled with toll tallies, a few trinkets from travelers, mostly junk, but with sentimental value, a carved wooden dice, a bent copper brooch, a pebble shaped exactly like a tooth you hope it is a pebble. You count your coins, 7 silver, 12 copper, and 1 coin with a hole in the middle that may be from somewhere exotic or just poorly minted. Still, you feel rich. Sort of. Then, repairs. One beam in the roof keeps sagging. You jam a stick under it. Your stool wobbles. You wedge a flat stone beneath it. The window sticks. You smack it open with your palm and immediately regret it as a gust of cold wind pelts your face. You shut it. The maintenance routine continues. These are the daily rituals that ground your existence, oddly satisfying in their way. You do not have much, but everything has its place. Even the dried nettles you hang in the corner to ward off rats useless, but they smell nice. Mid-morning, a boy comes running up the path, breathless, wild-eyed. No cart, no toll, just a message. There's a fire near the old mill. Lord wants all hands. You blink. You are not all hands. You are a toll collector. Your job is to sit, scowl, and accept cheese as currency. But the look on the boy's face tells you this is bigger than tolls today. You nod, grab your cloak, and follow. The walk to the mill is half a mile. Smoke already curls above the trees like a charcoal ribbon. People shout. Buckets are passed hand to hand. You jump in, soaked by your second trip. Nobody says thank you. Nobody has time. You're just another pair of muddy feet stomping water. By the time the flames are out, your clothes are wet, your boots are ruined, and your hands are blistered. But you feel strangely human. A mill worker hands you a cup of weak cider in thanks. No toll for him tomorrow, you decide. Not after this. You walk back as dusk settles, legs aching, chest tight. The booth looks different in the fading light. Warmer, somehow, like it is waiting for you. Adela greets you with a peck on the shin. Inside, you collapse on your straw, stare at the ceiling, and feel the strange satisfaction of a day not spent counting carts. But soon enough, duty creeps back. A traveler approaches in the dark, lantern swaying, cartwheels creaking. You rise, wipe your hands on your cloak, and step outside. Evening toll. You murmur. He blinks at night. You raise an eyebrow. He pays. That is the thing about this life. You are always on duty. Even when the fire's out, the stars are out, and the world is mostly asleep, someone might still come. So you stay ready. You live small. You eat what is offered. You sleep when you can. And you wake with pine cones in your ear. Because no one else is going to do this job. And somehow, impossibly, you are exactly the person for it. The first bribe of the day is a pear. A lovely one, yellow-green, with a flush of pink, soft to the touch, and suspiciously perfect. You know this kind of pear. Not just a gift, not just toll. This is a plea wrapped in skin and juice. Look the other way. You glance up. The traveler offering it is too confident. He is driving a cart stacked far too high with crates wrapped in canvas, and he is sweating more than the weather demands. You nod slowly, take the pear, and then casually stroll to the rear of the cart. Going to the market? You ask, munching. He nods, too quickly. Carrying spices? No, he says, just dried fish, which would make sense. Except dried fish do not usually smell like rosewater and cloves. Bribes, in your line of work, are not rare. In fact, they are almost a given. Sometimes subtle, like a second coin slipped into your palm with a wink. Other times, embarrassingly obvious. A bottle of wine placed at your feet, no questions asked, and occasionally bizarre. You once received a bundle of dyed feathers sewn into a hat, offered with great ceremony, and a whispered, "Please do not mention the extra wheels." Historians still argue whether bribery was unofficially tolerated or actively condemned in local toll law. Technically, accepting anything beyond the mandated toll could be considered corruption. Realistically, everyone did it. Nobles, reeves, even abbots. You just happened to be lower on the food chain and more creative with your acceptance methods. Back to the pear man. You tap one of the crates with your boot. It gives a hollow thunk. Not dried fish. Maybe fabric. Maybe something worse. You raise an eyebrow. He meets your gaze. You say, "That is a good pear," and you let him pass. Not because you are bought, but because you know he is small time. Whatever scheme he is running, it is not worth the headache of detaining him. Let the city reeve sort it out. You are just the gate. That said, sometimes a bribe is not about looking the other way. Sometimes it is about respect. A traveling bard once paid your toll with a poem. He stood on a barrel, recited 3 verses about the weather, the road, and your suspiciously grumpy expression, and then handed you a plum. You waved him through, smiling like a fool. Then there was the mercenary. Hard eyes, scarred knuckles, heavy sword. He did not want to pay at all. He stood in front of your booth and said, "How much to forget I was here?" You looked him up and down, weighed the risks, and said, "1 story." He blinked. "You tell me one thing you have never told anyone." You do that, you pass. He hesitated. Then, quietly, he told you about a dog he had once loved. A mutt named Rollo died in his arms during a siege. Never told another soul. You let him pass. Later, you found a small wooden carving left beside your booth. A dog's face. Rough, but careful. You still keep it in your coin pouch. Not all bribes are beautiful, of course. Some are desperate. Once, a mother offered you her shoes so she could pass with her children. You let her through barefoot and gave her a pair someone else had left behind. Too big, but something. You added a note in your log, paid in kindness. And once, a man offered you something awful. You will not speak of it, but you did not take it. You are not that kind of toll collector. The pair, for the record, was excellent. It is a delicate dance. This part of the job, this quiet gray zone between law and life. You are supposed to enforce the rules, but the rules do not always feed a hungry family. The rules do not always recognize heartbreak or kindness or cleverness. So, you bend them just a little. A merchant caravan arrives in the afternoon. 4 carts, 12 donkeys, 2 very bored-looking guards. You know this crew. They pass every 2 weeks, and they always try something new. Today's bribe is elaborate. A trio of jellied sweets, molded into the shapes of saints. You blink. They wink. You pretend to inspect the wheels while popping St. Clement into your mouth. He tastes like plum and sugar and guilt. Anything undeclared? You ask, more out of duty than curiosity. Only our sins, the lead merchant replies. You wave them through. You keep the sweets. There are rules, of course. You never take a bribe that puts someone in danger. You never let weapons go unnoticed. And you always make sure the books look clean. If a lord or sheriff comes sniffing, you want nothing but straight lines and clean entries. Still, under your tally board, there is a second system. Small scratches, marks, and odd corners. Circles, triangles, little coded notches. Your own language of memory. Each shape represents a favor, a kindness, a debt. You are building something invisible, a web of gratitude, a quiet currency that no reeve could ever audit. Bribery, yes, but with heart, or at least, that is what you tell yourself. That night, as you sit by your tiny hearth with a scrap of bread and the last of the saintly sweets, you think about all the strange treasures people have given you over the years. The paracord sits on the window ledge, the dog carving in your pouch, the story of the mercenary still echoing in your ears. You are more than a toll collector. You are a vault of secrets, and sometimes that is more valuable than any coin. Today, you are at war with a goat. It is not metaphorical. It is very literal, and it began at dawn when a creature barreled through the hedge beside your toll booth, head-butted your stool, and tried to eat your ledger. You shrieked, yes, shrieked, and launched a shoe in retaliation. The goat dodged like a seasoned fencer and leapt onto your thatched roof, where it now perches like a smug gargoyle. This is the glamour of medieval toll collecting. Occasionally, you are under siege from livestock. You try whistling, bribing, and throwing breadcrumbs, but the goat is unmoved. Adela, the chicken, watches from a fence post, wholly unimpressed. Eventually, you give up and pretend nothing is happening. And that, strangely enough, is the heart of your job. Pretend everything is fine while chaos froths just beyond the path. Because your booth is not just a booth. It is a barrier, a filter, a sponge soaking up the ripples of every feud, tax, hunger, migration, and plague that rolls through this road like storm clouds on a fast wind. You are the checkpoint between the ordinary and the absurd. Take today, for example. A noble's courier storms down the road, red in the face, demanding immediate passage. I carry news of birth, he declares, puffed up like a rooster. No toll shall apply. You hold out your hand calmly, then deliver it after paying. You say, the baby will still be screaming when you arrive. He throws 2 coins at your chest and curses all toll keepers under heaven. A few hours later, a monk arrives, dragging a cart covered in sacks. His face is pale, his hands shaky. Relic transport, he says, barely above a whisper. You inspect the sacks. Bread, grain, a jug of something that smells like it died twice. No relics in sight. Still, you charge him the reduced toll, partly out of pity and partly because he looks like he might collapse if you say full rate. Historians still argue whether toll exemptions for religious personnel were universally honored or arbitrarily applied, especially during famine or war. In your experience, if someone had a convincing hood and smelled faintly of beeswax and prayer, they usually got a discount. Then, mid-afternoon, comes a slow-moving cart painted in garish colors, bells jingling with every rotation. A puppet show. Yes, a traveling puppet troupe. You are not hallucinating. A man with 3 teeth and a grin like a cracked bass leaps from the driver's bench and sings your name, your actual name, which you have not told him, then presents you with a marionette carved in your likeness. You are famous, he says. We passed a mill 2 towns back, where your chicken was legend. You do not know how to process this. He performs a 10-second puppet sketch in which you nobly defeat a band of trolls, demanding unpaid tolls. The trolls are suspiciously shaped like tax officials. You waive their fee, obviously. Later, as you lean against your booth, watching the sun tilt west, a man arrives on foot, cloaked, quiet. He carries a strange box slung over one shoulder, banded in iron and sealed with wax. Carrying anything of note? You ask. He pauses. Memories, he says, and continues walking. You do not stop him. Sometimes the strange ones are best left alone. You scribble down notes in your ledger, tolls paid, oddities encountered, goat still on roof. Yes, the goat is still there. Eventually, it jumps down, licks your remaining shoe, and disappears into the trees. You consider this a diplomatic victory. Dinner is a chunk of cheese, a slice of onion, and a piece of flatbread donated by a thankful tanner earlier in the week. You eat slowly, savoring the quiet. The stars blink through the trees. Somewhere, an owl calls. You realize how few people get to see the world like this, on pause. Just a stretch of road, a low wind, and the weight of dusk settling into your bones. You stretch out your legs. Adela nestles into your side. The puppet version of you sits propped in the window, waving silently to no one in particular. And it strikes you, not for the first time, how odd your days are, how no 2 hours are the same. You are not a soldier, or a farmer, or a merchant. You are something in between. Guardian, sponge, witness, and occasionally enemy of goats. You light a small lantern, log your final tallies, and tuck the puppet onto your shelf. Tomorrow will bring new fools, new frauds, and new stories. And if you are very lucky, fewer goats. You wake before dawn to the sound of distant wheels. It is a sound you know intimately, the creak of axles, the shuffle of hooves, the uneven slap of tired leather boots. This is not a single traveler. This is a group, a large one. And that means you will need your serious face. You splash your face with cold water from the basin, throw on your jerkin, and prepare for impact. Sure enough, a small procession emerges from the fog. 3 carts, each flying different banners. Noble families, no doubt. Their standards flap gently in the morning breeze. One embroidered with a tree, another with a crowned goose, and the last, a wheel of fire. You blink. That one does not bode well. The servants hop down first, all scurrying hands and muttered instructions. Then the animals, 6 horses, plumed and groomed to within an inch of absurdity. And finally, the nobles, 2 women and a man, their clothes layered, their brows high, and their expressions shaped by generations of never being told no. You brace yourself. Noble tolls are a delicate thing. Technically, they are supposed to pay, but they almost never do. Instead, they give you a letter, or a seal, or a sigh. The goose lady sighs. We are on royal business, she intones. Then the crown may reimburse you. You reply cheerfully, holding out your hand. She stares at it like it just insulted her dog. The fire will noble, tall, thin, with cheekbones that could cut wood, leans forward and says, "Do you know who I am?" You smile. Not yet, but I am sure the register will appreciate the addition. Historians still debate whether toll exemptions for nobility were formally codified or simply assumed. In practice, local collectors like you followed one rule. If they offer something interesting, you let them through. And today, they offer a book. Not just any book. A tiny illuminated prayer book, bound in red leather and filled with silvered pages. We pass freely, the tree banner woman says, and you may keep this. You hesitate, not because you are unsure of the trade, but because the book is beautiful, almost sacred. You feel a little dirty accepting it. But then you remember yesterday's goat and the month-old cheese in your cupboard. You nod and wave them through. You flip through the pages after they are gone. Inside, pressed flat between psalms, is a sprig of lavender, a mark of the woman's house, a lover's gift, or just a bookmark. Either way, it smells like memory. You add the book to your growing pile of strange tolls paid. It joins the puppet, the dog carving, a pouch of rare salt, and a map of somewhere that may not exist. Late morning brings another kind of challenge. A pilgrim caravan, barefoot and bleeding. There are 12 of them, young, old, broken-toed and dust-covered, dragging themselves toward the holy shrine 2 towns over. They carry no coin, only tokens, prayers, and grim determination. You do not ask for toll. Instead, you hand out what you can: a flask of water, a few crumbs, directions to the nearest shade tree. One of them, a girl with a missing front tooth and a nose shaped like a question mark, gives you a small stone. For the road, she says. You add it to the window ledge. It sits beside the pear core and the puppet's hat. Midday. The wind changes. It carries news before the messengers can speak it. You smell smoke. Sure enough, a few hours later, a rider gallops through. The village to the north has suffered a fire. Thatched roofs gone. A third of the homes smoldering. He does not stop, but his eyes meet yours for a flicker. You log it anyway. If you see the villagers in the coming days, seeking shelter, begging for leniency, you will know why. Sometimes your job is part oracle, part detective, part social sponge. You spend the afternoon in repair mode, fixing the logbook, mending the roof still dented from the goat siege, and reorganizing your tool chest. You find a token from last month wedged behind the ledger, a copper disc with a hole punched through the middle, marked with a spiral. No memory of who gave it. You keep it anyway. Late in the day, a scholar stops by. You can tell he is a scholar because he immediately begins talking about Roman toll laws. You know, he says, the Romans had entire stations for customs agents. Very bureaucratic. Scrolls, seals, Latin. You are part of a grand tradition. You nod slowly while chewing a bit of dried apple. He continues without pause. They taxed everything: wine, wool, even people. There is a papyrus fragment about a camel being charged twice for sneezing. You blink. Really? Historians still argue whether it was a metaphor. You wave him through. He leaves behind a page torn from a manuscript, covered in marginalia and ink stains. You are not sure what it says. It might be a recipe for turnip broth. You hang it in your booth anyway. Evening settles, dusky and soft. You look over your ledger, your odd collection, your toll payer map scrawled in charcoal across the inner wall of the booth. You mark new paths, new villages, new stories. You light your lantern, lean back, and listen to the woods creak with sleep. Today you let nobles pass with poetry and pilgrims pass with stones. You charged a merchant twice for lying, forgave a tanner for forgetting, and collected enough stories to fill a chapel. You are not a guard. You are a filter. And today, you filtered well. Some mornings, you are jolted awake by horse hooves. Others, like today, it is laughter. Children's laughter, to be specific. Gleeful, high-pitched, absolutely up to something. You stagger outside, eyes crusty with sleep, and find 3 small humans building a mini toll booth directly in front of yours. It is made from sticks, moss, and what you suspect is your missing scarf. One of the girls is holding a chicken feather like a quill. They demand a toll from you. You sigh. I already work here. No exceptions. The tallest child says gravely. Even goats pay. You pay them 2 pebbles and a walnut, and they stamp your palm with a muddy thumbprint. Official, apparently. Then they disappear back down the lane, giggling and trailing leaves. You make a note. Local children now fully trained in extortion. This is not unusual. Medieval toll booths often became odd little nexuses of community interaction, half checkpoint, half confession booth, half complaint department. People shared things with toll collectors they would not tell a priest. And today, your first adult visitor of the morning has a secret. He is a blacksmith, heavy-set and twitchy. He hands you a sack of nails as payment. Could not get coin this week, he mumbles. You nod and inspect the nails. Fine quality. Then he adds, without prompting, my wife thinks I am meeting someone, but I just like the quiet walk. He walks off before you can respond. You write down emotional toll in the ledger and place the sack in your trade pile. Moments later, a shepherd arrives. His sheep refuse to cross your road. They simply stop. One lays down. Another begins chewing on its own leg out of what you assume is protest. He begs you for help. You clap, shout, wave the chicken. Nothing. Eventually, Adela hops down from the window and walks calmly across the road. The sheep follow her like mesmerized monks. You waive the shepherd's fee entirely. The midday lull gives you time to tidy your growing archive. You have your standard register, of course, but also a personal ledger, less formal, more poetic. It is where you note the odd things. The man who paid in thimbles. The noble who cried when his horse sneezed. The boy who claimed to be carrying future kings in a basket. It was frogs. Historians still argue whether toll collectors of your rank were expected to document such exchanges. Most evidence says no, but you do it anyway. It feels important. In the early afternoon, you hear music, a dulcimer, plucked carefully, almost reverently. A woman walks up the road with an instrument slung across her chest and a pack on her back. She is sunburnt and humming to herself. Performance in lieu of payment, she asks, without pause. You nod. A trade is a trade. She sits on the edge of your stoop and begins playing. It is a tune you do not know, but feel like you have always known. Slow, curious, with sudden bursts of joy, like skipping stones on a pond. You close your eyes. For 10 minutes, the world is only that string of notes and the quiet rhythm of your own breath. When she finishes, she hands you a single silver button. In case music's not enough, she says, and disappears down the road. You will sew it onto your coat, near the collar. Not all tolls are made of money. A light rain begins to fall, soft and rhythmic. You pull the awning down and lean back. Adela tucks herself beneath your stool. The sky smells like wet bark and old promises. Then comes him. You have seen him before. Twice, maybe 3 times. Always walking, always silent. He wears no shoes, even in winter. His tunic is patched with what looks like sailcloth. He carries a single wooden spoon, and every time he passes, he offers the spoon to you. You always refuse. Today, though, something in his eyes says, "Take it." So you do. He nods once and walks on, feet slapping against the muddy road, as if nothing has happened. The spoon is smooth, old, burnished by countless hands. It is not valuable. It feels sacred anyway. You clean it and hang it beside the puppet. Later, just before dusk, a cart rolls by with no driver, just a donkey. No reins, no cargo, no markings. You stop it gently, walking out with your hands raised. Tied to the side is a note, scrawled in red chalk. This is yours now. You blink at the cart. It blinks back, metaphorically. Adela hops aboard and promptly falls asleep. You shrug. Another day, another unexplained acquisition. You park the cart behind your booth and name the donkey Tax. You make a little joke to yourself. Tax came uninvited, but now I am responsible for him. Your laughter echoes oddly in the stillness. As night falls, you light the lantern and mark the day's strange trades. Nails, music, buttons, spoons, and goats in memory. You note the moods, the weather, the laughter, the sighs. You add the miniature toll booth to your shelf. Yes, you took it after the children left. Of course you did. You lean back in your creaky stool and look up at the darkening sky. Today was slow, peaceful, absurd, beautiful. You did not just collect tolls. You collected the day. A rooster crows. You groan, not because it is early, but because that rooster belongs to Merrick, and Merrick only ever shows up when something has gone terribly sideways. You open your booth window, and there he is, clutching his hat like it owes him money. "The bridge," he says breathlessly. "It is gone." You blink. Gone how? Gone. Washed out. Flood took the planks. Only the stone base left. And a goat, of course. By the time you reach the spot with Merrick, half an hour's trudge down the north road, you find it exactly as described. Stone supports jutting from the river like snapped teeth. A single terrified goat clinging to what remains of the handrail. You sigh. This bridge connected 2 toll regions. Without it, every cart, animal, or muddy traveler will now reroute directly past your booth, and you are not ready. By the time you get back, 3 merchants are already arguing on your stoop. One wants a reduced toll because the longer route is emotional sabotage. Another insists his dried figs are a divine exemption. The third just keeps repeating, "But the bridge," as if that absolves him of needing to pay. You deal with it. You always do. But the flood changes things. More traffic, more strain, more people trying to avoid the toll booth altogether by sneaking around. You must patrol more frequently, walk the woods, check for wheel ruts where there should be none. Your feet start to ache in new places. You catch your first true toll dodger by sunset. A lanky boy, maybe 13, pushing a wheelbarrow full of candles down a deer path. You step out from behind a tree, and he freezes. "Shortcut," he explains weakly. He considers. "Detour. Spiritual one." You find him a single candle. He chooses the ugliest one and hands it over like a martyr. You burn it that night. It smells like fermented onions and guilt. The next day, the town council sends a letter. You are to observe, but not interfere, as a group of masons comes to inspect the damage and sketch plans for a replacement bridge. The letter is signed with impressive flourishes and no offer of extra food. You prepare for them anyway. Bridge builders are a special kind of person. All rope belts and sunburns and theories about arch physics. They arrive with dusty boots and large hands and take over the area like polite invaders. You offer them water. They ask for wine. You offer wine. They ask for stronger. One of them, Tilda, sits with you during lunch. She is missing teeth and the world's loudest laugh. "You know," she says, "there is a Roman bridge in Gaul still standing after 1,200 years. They used volcanic ash in the mix. We use horse spit and prayers." You nod sagely. A strong mix. Historians still argue whether Roman engineering was really superior or just better documented. She adds between bites of bread. You immediately like her. The bridge team camps nearby for 3 days. During that time, you get a crash course in stone logic, river moods, and how to avoid being crushed by a pulley. You also hear 6 different dirty jokes involving goats. You only remember 2. Traffic spikes by day 4, not just because of the flood, but because word has spread. Your toll road is still working, still watching, and still worth avoiding if you are cowardly enough. You catch a baker trying to smuggle flour under her cloak. You catch a monk hiding behind a pig. You catch 2 twins pretending to be one person by standing on each other's shoulders in a long robe. That one earns your respect, and you let them through for free. Even Adela is tired. She naps more than usual, stretching out in weird places, on the ledger, inside the broken cart, once on your head. Her snoring is oddly comforting. One evening, just as the last light slips behind the treetops, you hear something you have not heard in weeks. A horn, not a musical one. A signaling horn. Sharp, deliberate. You rise immediately. It is the constable from the neighboring shire. He rides with 2 others, all bearing the black and gold emblem of the local baron. They dismount. The leader speaks first. "There has been talk," he says, "of unlawful taxes, of improper trades, of souvenirs being taken as toll." You hold his gaze. "We follow the law, and when the law is silent, we follow fairness," he snorts. "Fairness is not your job. You show him your register, your tallies, your sealed pouch of silver coins for the Baron's share. You offer him a spoon of your soup, which he declines with tragic contempt. After an hour of tense discussion, they leave. No charges, no bribes, just warnings and sideways glances. You make a note, fear audit. Survived, but you do not sleep well that night. The rain returns in the early hours. Not a downpour, just the kind that drips steadily from the eaves and sets your teeth on edge. You lie awake, watching the lantern's glow flicker on the ceiling. You wonder how long the bridge will take. You wonder what the boy with the candles is doing now. You wonder if your job is slowly turning you into a historian. Then Adela flops beside you and drools on your pillow. You stop wondering. You wake to shouting. Not angry shouting, excited. Voices overlapping, breathless. One even sounds. Giddy? You stumble outside and are immediately met with a whirlwind of bodies and carts. The road is more crowded than you have ever seen it. Dozens of travelers, some with children, all clustered near your booth like pigeons around crumbs. At the center of it all, a painted wagon. It is enormous, ridiculous, and wonderful, covered in red and green swirls, tiny golden bells, and an absolutely unnecessary number of tassels. A cloth banner hangs from the side, flapping gently in the morning breeze. Madame Ferenza's astounding traveling cabinet of curiosities. You immediately feel underdressed. A small woman in a velvet turban appears on the wagon's roof. 2 coppers to view, she shouts. 1 for children, 1 and a hug for animals. Someone tries to pay with a goat hug. The goat is not enthusiastic. You try to maintain order, but the energy is contagious. You collect tolls, of course. This is still your road, but today, people pay eagerly, chatting about what marvels lie inside Madame Ferenza's cabinet. You are curious too. You eventually pay your own toll to yourself. You count it as research and climb aboard during a rare lull. Inside, it is dark and theatrical. Glass cases line the walls, each with hand-lettered tags. The pebble Napoleon cried on maybe, hair from the head of a witch's dog, the real nose of St. Maurice, definitely not wax. A bell that rings only for the sad. You stare at that last one. It is silent. In the back corner sits Madame Ferenza, draped in shawls, sipping what smells like extremely caffeinated tea. She peers at you through a monocle. You are the toll keeper. You nod. She leans in. You must hear everything. You shrug. I hear more than I understand. She beams. Perfect. Want to trade? You end up exchanging the spoon, the sacred, silent spoon from the barefoot traveler, for a small music box shaped like a snail. When you open it, it plays a 4-note tune that somehow reminds you of snow. Each keeper must choose their own relics, she says, and chews you out with a wink. As the day unfolds, people linger, they picnic, they share food. Someone brings a lute. Children dance. A toothless old man tries to flirt with Adela, who steals his hat and wins the encounter. You do not know what this is. It is not just traffic. It is not just tolls. It feels like a gathering, a strange and temporary village born around your booth. By evening, Madame Ferenza's wagon moves on. The crowd thins. The laughter echoes a little longer than it should. Someone leaves behind a boot. Someone else forgets a wheel of cheese. You eat the cheese. That night, you inspect your snail box again. The tune has changed slightly. You do not question it. The next few days are quiet, almost eerily so. The bridge crew has gone. The floodwaters have receded, and Madame Ferenza's caravan left in a spray of confetti and unpaid hugs. You pass the time by reorganizing your trade pile. Thimbles, buttons, goat coupons expired, miniature puppets, and now the music snail. You give it its own shelf. But something is different. People come through your toll, not just with coin, but with stories. They heard about the barefoot man. They heard about the flame-haired bridge woman. Someone tells you you are in a song now. You blush, then deny it, then blush again. You are becoming a fixture, a character. It is strange. You used to be invisible, just a booth and a grumble. Now people know your name. Well, a name. You are mostly referred to as the keeper. You think you like it. One foggy morning, a merchant from the south stops by. His horse is skittish, and his cloak smells like distant pine. He pays you with a coin older than your kingdom. He leans in. You heard the news? You raise an eyebrow. That is always a dangerous opening line. He continues. The Baron is moving, not that just bored, or ambitious, or both. You blink. The merchant shrugs. New lands, new toll systems. Rumors say he wants decentralized collection, bigger stations, fewer keepers. You glance at your booth. Small, crooked, quiet. You glance at Adela, sleeping upside down on your ledger again. You feel a pang, not of panic, not yet, but of foreshadowing. You thank the merchant and mark his payment in the log. Later that night, as the moon rises and fog curls around your chimney, you sit with the snail music box in your hands. You wind it. It plays a slower tune this time, almost wistful. You imagine a time when this booth might no longer stand, when the road might be empty, when tolls are collected by armored strangers who never learned the goat's name. You sigh and look around. Lantern, puppet, snail, spoonless, but not soulless. You are still here. You will be until the last cart rolls by. Dawn comes with a letter, tied to a stone and lobbed unceremoniously through your window. It misses your face by a courteous inch. Adela hisses at it until you pick it up. The seal is intact, green wax, pressed with the Baron's insignia. A wolf's head crowned with wheat. You break it open. The letter is formal, crisp, and utterly unwelcome. To the keeper of the North Ridge toll station, as of the first moon of next month, your booth shall be assessed for relevance and modernization. A delegation will arrive to inspect your post, your ledgers, your protocols, and your person. Pending evaluation, the station may be absorbed into the Central Toll Authority. Compliance is expected. Hospitality is advised. Do not feed them fermented cheese. By order of Lord Randall Searwine, Baron of the Eastern Vine, you fold the letter neatly, and press it under your heaviest mug. So, it has come to this. The rumors were not rumors. The central authority, the same faceless bureaucracy that once forgot to pay you for 5 straight months, is reaching out its long, paper-scented fingers. You take a walk. The morning mist clings low, making the trees look like shy giants. The road is quiet, but your ears are loud. Thoughts scatter like marbles in your head. What will the inspection mean? More rules, more uniformity, more meetings, probably. You already have your routine: toll, trade, note, guard. You know the travelers by sound now, the jangle of coins, the creak of a bad wheel, the way someone clears their throat when trying to pretend they are not hiding a pig in their cardigan. And now some parchment pusher wants to assess your person. You return to the booth and start tidying, not out of fear, just control. The ledger is cleaned, the spoons stacked, the puppet shelf dusted. You even comb Adela. She bites you once in protest. You brace for change. It arrives 2 days early. The delegation consists of 3 people. 2 wear matching gray robes that manage to be both soggy and self-important. A third wears leather boots so clean they practically glow. The lead inspector introduces herself with a scroll and a nasal voice. I am Claremond of Tolwick. This is Goff, and this is also Goff. The Goffs nod in eerie synchronization. We are here to evaluate your operations, toll philosophy, hygiene standards, and cultural sensitivity. You offer them a seat. They decline. Standing encourages neutrality, apparently. Claremond begins her barrage of questions. How many tolls per week? What is your record-keeping method? How do you determine value equivalency for non-monetary trade? What is your official procedure for a runaway chicken? You answer them all, calmly, steadily. You even show them your emergency diagram for the chicken scenario, complete with arrows. Goff at 1 sketches your booth, while Goff at 2 tests the strength of your stool by sitting on it until it cracks slightly. They write down, adequate. Then Claremond finds the music snail. She frowns at it. What is this? Payment from a candle smuggler. You reply. She winds it. The box plays its slow tune, mournful and sweet. This is not in the official toll item list, she says. It is now. You reply. Claremond jots a note. You suspect it is not a compliment. They stay the night, yes, in your booth. All of them. You sleep in the woodshed, where Adela insists on occupying exactly the space where your feet need to go. By dawn, they are gone. No farewell, no verdict, just your stool cracked, your shelf disturbed, and your peace completely unsettled. You feel like a tree that has just been measured and found oddly shaped. That day, your first traveler is a singer from the southern marshes. She pays in songs. You log it as melodic tax, and she accepts the term with a curtsy. She sings of bog spirits and broken oaths, and your heart aches. After she leaves, you sit quietly. You realize something. For all the parchment, for all the measuring, they do not understand. The point of a toll keeper is not just to collect. It is to witness, to see the faces, hear the lies, accept the oddities, to be the one permanent object in a world of wagons and wandering. You think of Clairmond frowning at your snail. You wonder what song it played for her. Later that evening, an old woman limps toward you with a goose under one arm and a bouquet of swamp herbs in the other. "Toll?" she croaks. You glance at her, then the goose, then the herbs. Which one's the payment? She grins, a nearly toothless grin. You choose. You take the herbs. Adela, naturally, tries to eat the goose. As the stars bloom above, you write in your log, "Goose declined. Herb-scented blessing accepted. Booth remains open." You realize you have started adding commentary to your entries. Opinions. Mood descriptions. You are no longer just a toll taker. You are a quiet historian. And perhaps that is what they will never understand. The report arrives at twilight. You find it tucked under a flat stone beside your booth, sealed in double wax, with your name spelled almost correctly. Inside, 4 sheets of heavy paper, densely inked and smelling faintly of wet socks. You sit cross-legged by your window to read it, Adela curled like a punctuation mark on your foot. The contents? Mixed results. Your toll technique is labeled unorthodox but functional. Your ledger? Eccentric. Your trade-based payments? Borderline folkloric. Your hygiene? Acceptable, barring the incident involving fermented radish butter. You smile at that one. The butter had been an accident, and only mildly sentient. Then, at the bottom of the final page, comes the true verdict. This station will remain independent due to unique regional character and cultural utility. Central authority reserves the right to reassess annually. Refrain from snail-based accounting in future. You laugh, a deep, relieved, belly-shaking laugh that startles a crow and briefly awakens a traveling priest nearby who blesses you in his sleep. You remain. Your booth stays crooked. Your stool stays cracked. Your spoonless shelf stays sacred. But the world, of course, does not pause. A week later, the mountains shift. Not literally, though you half expect them to someday. What happens is subtler. A new road opens beyond the ridge, rumored to be smoother, safer, and with 3 fewer troll haunts. Traffic dips, fewer carts, fewer stories. You feel it first as a quietness, the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. 1 full day passes with only 2 travelers, a blind fiddler and a mule that smells of cinnamon. You start to wonder if the world is drifting away. But then, something beautiful happens. They begin coming back, not to pass through, to visit. A retired soldier brings his grown children to show them the booth that gave me the puppet. A merchant sets up a tiny tea stand nearby, unlicensed, of course, but his peppermint blend is a masterpiece. An ex-thief you once overcharged as punishment for lying about his age returns with a pie and a sheep. You let it slide. More and more, it feels like a community gathering in orbit around a crooked booth and a sleepy cat. They do not need to stop here, but they choose to. You develop a new routine. In the early hours, before the mist has burned off, you tidy. You check the music snail. You light the lantern. even if the sun is already up. In the afternoons, you listen. People tell you of marriages, breakups, stolen recipes, haunted basements. You log some of it, coded naturally. In the evenings, you host. A kettle, a bench, a fire pit made from old tollstones. People linger. They sing. One traveler teaches Adela to high five. She promptly forgets the skill the next day, possibly out of spite. You notice something odd. Nobody ever questions your presence now. No one asks why a single person should hold such a lonely post. You are no longer lonely. The roads are still roads. The world still turns. But your toll booth has become something else entirely. A way station for wandering hearts. A memory checkpoint. A place where oddness is logged and respected. You receive an anonymous gift, a tiny bell carved from bone, tied with red twine. You hang it beside your ledgers. It never rings, but it feels protective. Then, one rainy evening, you hear an unfamiliar sound, a slow, rhythmic creak. You squint into the mist. A figure approaches, pushing something large. It is a cart, roughly built, uneven wheels, covered in patchwork cloth. The man pushing it is older than river stones. His beard reaches his waist, and his hat is shaped like a loaf of bread. No one mentions it. He stops in front of your booth. Do you take stories? He asks. Always, you reply. He opens his cart. Inside, scrolls, hundreds, maybe thousands. Some are crumbling. Some are tied in ribbon. One appears to be written on dried apple skin. I collect what people leave behind, he says. You nod. Together, you spend hours that night swapping tales. He trades you a story about a silent king who ruled with paper birds for a spoonless spoon story. You both agree it is a fair deal. When he leaves behind one scroll. No title. Just a line scrawled on the back in slanted ink. The toll booth that became a myth. You add it to your shelf, carefully, almost reverently, because you are beginning to suspect something. Maybe this booth has stopped being just a checkpoint. Maybe it has become a kind of lore. Place between places. Like those forest paths that always seem longer than they should be. Or the inn that only appears during snow. You are still here. The world is still wide. And the toll must still be paid. But now, people know that paying means being remembered. And being remembered, that is worth far more than coin. It starts with the child, barefoot, wide-eyed, and carrying a sack that jingles suspiciously. You spot him from a distance, half hidden behind a milk cart, trailing in its dust like a barnacle with legs. The cart rolls on without him, and the boy stops in front of your booth. He says nothing. You raise an eyebrow. Adela meows, a warning, or a welcome, unclear. Then he holds up the sack and says, "Toll." You reach for your ledger. He empties the contents onto your desk. 27 pebbles, a bent coin, and a cracked walnut. You glance at him. Which one is the toll? He points to the walnut. You nod. The other objects? Gifts, he says. For you. You accept them, of course. Even the pebbles. Especially the pebbles. You now have a side shelf marked miscellaneous treasure. where the walnut will sit proudly between a carved button and a fossilized beetle. As he turns to leave, he says something strange. "Thank you for the stories." You blink. "Have we met?" He shrugs. "Not me. My uncle, he used to ride through here years ago. Said you gave him a joke instead of change once. This, frankly, sounds accurate. He told me about the talking duck." The boy continues. You smile. "That was one of your better told trades. A tale for a song. And the duck did not even complain much." The boy vanishes into the trees. You are left with a desk of tiny clinks and a heart that feels oddly full. That night, you write a note in your ledger. Received, a toll, a tribute, a legacy. The booth, it seems, has echoes. Not all are loud. Some arrive quietly, through new feet stepping where older ones once trod. And some come more deliberately, like the woman in the indigo cloak. She arrives on foot, long after dusk. Her hair is braided with candle wicks. Yes, candle wicks. And her boots are made of stitched map fragments. She asks you no questions. She simply pulls out a scroll and begins to read. It is your story, or pieces of it, fragments, half myths, a toll keeper who drinks dreams, a booth that shifts with the moon, a cat that guards memory. You stare at her, stunned. She finishes, lowers the scroll. "It is spreading," she says softly. "What you've made here." "Made?" You echo. "I just sit. I write. I trade." She tilts her head. You curate. She leaves a blue ribbon behind and disappears into the fog. You hang the ribbon from the booth's central beam. It flutters when there is no wind. The next few weeks blur. A bard visits to compose a song about the toll oracle. You beg him to choose a less embarrassing title. He does not. He returns later with a chorus of traveling kids. They perform the song while attempting to juggle pickles. You admire the spirit. You find yourself known. People tell you things before they tell anyone else. News of distant floods, secret marriages, rumors of a 3-headed mule. You log what matters. You listen to the rest. One afternoon, an elderly woman hands you a folded paper. Inside is a pressed flower and a single sentence. "Thank you for holding the line." You do not know what she means. You also know exactly what she means. Not everything makes sense. Not everything needs to. Your daily log has grown from a column of tolls to an emotional weather report. Today, mild melancholy with pockets of awe. Tomorrow, expect scattered absurdities with a high chance of goose interference. The booth is evolving, not physically. Well, except for the vine that has decided to coil around your window in a slow but stubborn embrace. You let it be. It offers shade. But inwardly, the booth has become something else entirely. A place of recollection. Travelers leave behind more than tolls. They leave sighs, smiles, unfinished thoughts. The air hangs heavy with them, like incense, and you have become their keeper. It changes you. Your hearing sharpens, not just for coin or clatter, but for tone, the way a person breathes before telling a lie, the silence between two people not speaking. You offer the appropriate toll accordingly. One man confesses he is fleeing an arranged marriage. You charge him 2 truths and a deep breath. A woman admits she is secretly writing a cookbook on edible fungi that can also serve as paint. You let her through in exchange for a mushroom sketch. The ledger now includes columns like emotional residue and likelihood of return. Your penmanship improves. Your patience does too. What begins to worry you, though, is what happens if you ever stop. What if you leave? What if the booth collapses? What if the stories dry up? Historians still argue whether toll booths like yours ever truly had lasting impact. Some say they were merely functional. Others insist they were the spine of local folklore. You have no answers, only the growing sense that one day the road may change again, or you may. You say nothing of this out loud, but sometimes, late at night, when Adela curls under your chin and the stars scatter like spilled flour, you wonder how much longer your booth will stay exactly as it is, and whether that matters at all. Because as long as someone stops here, as long as one soul offers a pebble or a joke or a secret in trade, then the toll still lives. And so, perhaps, do you? You wait to frost, not the gentle rim of silver you sometimes see in the early autumn mornings. This is deep, crackling, cling to your teeth frost. It has snuck into your booth during the night like a jealous ghost and left your blanket stiff and your ink pot sealed shut with a crunchy lid of ice. Adela, ever the realist, has buried herself under your spare tunic and will not emerge for bribes, compliments, or even cheese. You step outside. The world has changed. Every leaf on every tree is edged in ice. The road crunches beneath your boots like stale biscuits. Even your teacup, left out overnight, has transformed into a miniature ice sculpture that vaguely resembles a screaming duck. You consider preserving it. There are no travelers this morning. The world has gone quiet again, but not the anxious kind of quiet. This is the hush that happens before a story changes chapters. You make tea with water heated over a reluctant fire. It smells faintly of wood smoke and pine needles and resolve. And then, with your cup steaming in hand, you hear it. Not footsteps, hooves, slow, deliberate, echoing like a drumbeat down the frozen road. A single rider appears through the mist, clad in heavy wool, face mostly hidden, but the posture is unmistakable, official, upright, bearing the weight of bureaucracy and possibly a severe shortage of jokes. You sigh. This smells like a reevaluation. He dismounts. He does not speak. He hands you a sealed scroll waxed with the emblem of central authority and waits. You open it carefully. Due to recent changes in trade volume and administrative review, this toll station is hereby considered obsolete. Please dismantle and relocate to Zone 7, River Junction Route. Instructions and relocation, stipend enclosed. You stare at the words for a very long time. Then you look up. Zone 7? The man nods. River Junction? He nods again. A miserable place. Muddy. Known for its plague of argumentative squirrels. You fold the scroll neatly. I decline. His eyebrows raise by a millimeter. You cannot decline. It is not a request. I just did. Pause. Man adjusts his scarf. You do realize, he says slowly, this booth is no longer part of an active trade route. You are functionally irrelevant. You smile, a tired, frostbitten, utterly unbothered smile. Then I suppose it is a good thing I stopped being functional some time ago. He blinks, not insulted, just confused. You can practically hear the gears grinding in his head as they try to reframe you into something understandable. He leaves without further argument. No threats, no fine, no enforcement order. Just leaves. You watch his retreating back, your breath a tiny cloud in the air, and feel an odd sort of peace. You are being erased on paper. But here, on this road, in this booth, you are more permanent than ever. A few days later, the frost begins to melt. Not all of it. This is still a stubborn winter, but the sharpest edges soften. The trees shimmer with thaw. A family of ducks returns, inexplicably early. One of them walks with a limp, but holds its head very high. The road sings again. Small at first, one traveler, then two, then a group. Some are new, some are not. The blind fiddler returns, now with an apprentice. The mushroom cook stops by to give you a sampler of her new line, truffle ink that doubles as soup base. It tastes awful, but you are deeply moved. A young woman with a crooked smile hands you a folded note. My father told me to give you this. You unfold it. 4 words, faded but clear. Still holding the line? You write back. Always, the tolls now come in stories, songs, soft laughter, rarely coin. Never complaint. You do not record every visitor anymore. Some are just moments, fleeting joys. You let them pass like wind through your booth. But you remember. You remember the merchant who wept after someone finally asked about his missing daughter. And you listened. You remember the knight who turned back from a pointless war after you challenged him to recite the alphabet backward, and he forgot what J was. You remember the girl who brought you a rock shaped like a question mark and whispered, "This is my favorite one." You keep it. You still charge tolls. But now, people offer without being asked. They leave feathers, riddles, dreams, confessions, tiny carved animals. Once, even a perfectly round potato with a face drawn on it. His name is Reginald. You gave him a hat. You realize something quietly while stirring tea one afternoon. You are not keeping the booth alive. The booth is keeping you. The ritual, the rhythm, the exchange, the listening, the waiting. You are its last guardian. But it is also your last anchor, a place made of wood and stone and quiet will, a place that has outlived its official purpose, and yet deepened its real one. Historians still argue whether such booths were necessary, but ask anyone who ever left a story behind or received one in return, and they will tell you, yes, it mattered. Because sometimes, on the road between where you were and where you are going, you need a checkpoint that says, stop, be seen, be strange. Pay a toll not with money, but with meaning. And that, dear keeper, is what you give them, day after day. Even now, especially now, the first snow of the new year falls in near silence. It comes at twilight, like someone gently turning down the volume on the world. No fanfare, no warning, just the slow, deliberate settling of white. You watch it from your window. There is something about snowfall that changes how time feels. You sit longer, sip slower, blink less. Even Adela curls on your lap without her usual groaning theatrics, her tail twitching only once before she surrenders to sleep. The booth creaks a little. You creak a little. Still, you are here. The road has faded. It is still there, technically, but with fewer cart tracks and more mystery, fewer destinations and more pauses. Travelers still arrive, but now in ones or twos, like shy memories coming home. And when they come, they often know you already, some from stories, others from passed down jokes. One girl recognized Adela before she recognized the booth. "That is the toll cat," she whispered, eyes wide. "The one who sneezed on a duke." Correct. They bring tolls now not just to pay, but to contribute. You realize this booth has become something else entirely. Not a checkpoint, not a tax post, a shrine. A small, wood-framed altar to the art of the curious stop. People bring fragments of themselves, not polished ones, not the things they post to gild boards or shout about in taverns, but the in-between parts, the strange objects, the half-thoughts, the quiet regrets. You offer nothing in return except listening and the occasional sarcastic remark, but it seems to be enough. One evening, you find a letter pinned to the booth door. It reads, "I passed through here years ago when I was lost. You gave me a drawing of a fish with a monocle and told me to trust that the absurd often holds more truth than logic. I did. I married someone who laughs like you do. We now run a bakery shaped like a giant spoon. Thank you." You frame it. You are running out of wall space. A traveling scholar once told you that memory clings to place, that stories etch themselves into stone and floorboard, and even when the people leave, the echoes remain. You believe her, because sometimes, in the quiet hours between dusk and sleep, you swear you hear the laughter of someone who left years ago, or the song of a bard now long buried, or the snort of a goat that was never supposed to be on this road in the first place, but insisted on coming through anyway. You do not stop them. You welcome them. You write their names again in your secret ledger, the one with the soft leather cover and the title written in invisible ink for later. And now, it is snowing again, a slow, heavy snow that quiets even the most determined thoughts. You step outside, blanket wrapped around your shoulders, like a royal mantle of idleness. You lean against the booth. It is older now. So are you. But the sign still hangs. Toll collected. One moment, please. And people still pause when they see it, even if they do not need to, even if they are not entirely sure why. The booth has outlived roads, rulers, maps, even the concept of toll itself, but it has never outlived need. The need to be greeted, the need to be awed, the need to be held for just a moment in a stranger's attention and told, yes, you exist, and that is worth something. There is a quiet clatter behind you, a traveler approaching. You do not turn yet. Instead, you close your eyes. Let the snow kiss your cheeks. Let the cold numb your toes. Let the world slow one more time, and then gently you open your eyes and say, "Hello, toll please." And the story begins again. And now, the booth is still. The road quiets. The snow falls softer. Even the wind seems to tiptoe. You are wrapped in your blanket, a candle flickering low beside your ledger, casting shadows across your scattered tolls, pebbles, drawings, half-finished poems, a wooden beetle, and, of course, dear Reginald the potato. Everything has slowed. The fire in the stove pops gently, like the booth is breathing in its sleep. Adela twitches once in her basket, dreaming of mice, or muffins, or both. The road outside has no footsteps now, only snowflakes, drifting silently down, piling up like forgotten words. There is nothing left to count, nothing urgent to note, only stillness and warmth, and the soft knowing that, even in the most peculiar corner of history, someone once sat, just like this, and held space for the strange and the small. This, perhaps, is the gentlest truth of toll collecting. You are never keeping people out. You are always inviting them in, one moment at a time. So, as the night deepens and the booth sighs in wood and memory, allow yourself to rest too. Let the story settle. Let the ledger close. Let the final toll be paid in silence. And may that silence be kind. Your booth will wait. The road will remember. And when the snow melts, slowly, gently, there will be another knock, another tale, another toll. But for now, sleep.